I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read this book, Success After Prison: How I Built Assets Worth More Than $1 Million Within 2 Years of My Release from 26 Years in Prison. It's a long and cumbersome title, and I don't know whether you had an opportunity to read it because I don't know if it's a part of this course. I've given it away to jails and prisons as part of this course, but I don't control, of course, what they distribute through the various modules and so on. I know that in preparing for success after prison, we have to see it. We have to see what it is, what is the best possible outcome, what can we do with it. If we can see that, we can then start sowing seeds for what's going to be better. But I'd like to tell you a story as we move into this module, which is about aspiration, why this book became so important, and how it influences other people. You see, when I was about probably in my fourth year of Liberty, 3 or 4 years of Liberty. In fact, in one of the earlier versions of this course, I spoke about how I was speaking inside of at a judicial conference, and an individual who used to be a captain of a prison approached me because he'd been promoted to a warden of a prison, and he invited me to come and speak to the men in the audience. And I because he saw me speaking in front of all of these judges and U.S. attorneys and prison officials, and he said, "Why don't you come to the penitentiary?" And I said, "I can do that if you want me to, but it doesn't really have a great lasting effect to be in there and just speak for an hour or 2 hours and motivate and inspire people. I would much rather prepare an entire course that would teach them how to prepare for success after prison if you would allow me to do that." And that's really what became the impetus of this course called Preparing for Success After Prison. So I worked really hard and wrote a book relatively quickly, and then I created videos that went along with it and audio files, and that's really how this course got started. And one thing that I believed was that it's really difficult to help people in jail or prison see the best possible outcome, because sometimes they have months or years or decades to pass before they're going to come home. And so I wanted to show them I never asked anybody to do anything that I didn't do. But I always believed that if I used my time in prison effectively, I could lay out a plan, I could develop tools, tactics, and resources. And these, if I executed the plan using those tools, tactics, and resources, I could either seize opportunities or create opportunities. And I wanted to show people how I did it. So parts of these books are part of that story. These were tools, tactics, and resources that I used to launch my career after I came out of prison. And I remember the day that my wife picked me up at the prison in Atwater, California, and drove me to a halfway house in San Francisco. And as we drove, I told her, within 5 years, we will have our first $1 million. And that might seem like a preposterous goal of what to define success after coming out of prison. But if you have a plan, you can execute that plan. You can work toward that plan. And that's what I want you to be thinking about as you're working through this course. Don't think about where you are right now. Think about the best outcome that you can architect, that you can get on your own. And then start thinking about what seeds can you sow to get there. And so in this book, Success After Prison, and I'm going to do my best to see about getting it to you. And the way I can get it to you is digitally, because I can, read the book online and have it become a part of a course, and then ask administrators, please share this with the people in prison. And so that's what I do. I do this kind of work to kind of document the story of how I did it. And now in the book, you're going to read a little bit about how I did it. If you go through this course, even in Earning Freedom, towards the end of it, I talk about how I launched my career after coming home. And it's kind of a funny story because I really talk a lot about how I prepared in prison to build a series of resources, I guess, that you might say that might help catapult me along the way, right? Remember in the beginning, I said, you've got to define success first, then you've got to set goals that align with success, and you've got to pursue it with the right attitude, but it's all got to work in harmony, in symmetry with how you're defining success. So in the beginning, I thought that if I could get a university degree, that would help me contribute to society in some kind of meaningful, measurable ways. And that, for me, that became through publishing. And if I publish, I might be able to bring more people into my life. And that was always part of a plan. I may not be able to earn a significant amount of money while I'm in prison, but little tiny steps of earnings, I could create those opportunities. And if I execute well, that can lead to something that is more significant. And I wrote about how I walked out of prison with more than $100,000 in the bank after serving 26 years. Now, I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back or to brag or to say anything other than, what was that $100,000? Was that an end game? No, it wasn't an end game. It was a step toward the first million. And then the first million would be a step toward the million after that. And that's what I want you to think about. As I interviewed a fella who is a really successful entrepreneur who built $1 billion company, and he used to use this analogy that says, it takes 10 pennies to make a dime. It's penny after penny after penny. It's these incremental steps, but you always know what you are aspiring to create. So the funny part of the story is that before I got out of prison, several years before I got out of prison, I understood that my life was changing, just like your life is changing. Every day that you serve, you are getting another day closer to your liberty. And every week and every month and every year should be different from the past. That's that incremental progress. And if you're pursuing that progress in a manner that will lead you to become the success that you say is important to you, you will have a story. And that story is going to help you sell the vision, the aspiration, the vision of what you can become rather than what you are. And so in this book, Success After Prison, I tell the story about how I started to reach out to people while I was incarcerated. I started to write letters to people and say, people that I wanted to become mentors of mine or avatars of mine or influencers of mine. I would say to them, just like you can do, hey, I'm getting out of prison in a few years, and if that turns you off, there's no reason to read further. But if you believe that a person can grow and a person can change, I'd love to offer you an opportunity. And here's what the opportunity is. I would love an opportunity to contribute to your organization. And so what I'd like to do is come to work with you. You don't have to pay me. I would like to work for 2 weeks for free. And if I'm not the first guy on the job, the last guy to leave, the hardest working guy, the most capable guy there, then shake my hand, or I'll shake your hand and thank you for the opportunity. But if you find me worthy, I would love an opportunity to intern with you and to grow and to contribute. And I will use all of my intellect and all of my power to try and help you become more successful, because that's one way that I can really launch my life. So I'd send those letters out to people that I didn't know. And if somebody wrote me back, I had what I would call a lead, somebody that has an interest. And then I would nurture that lead by writing them more letters. I used to do that not only with prospective employers or business partners, but I even did it with the probation department. I didn't know who was going to be my probation officer, but as I knew I was getting closer to my release date, I wrote about what I wanted to do when I went home, how I used my time in prison to prepare for success after release from prison, and I asked for support. And every month or every couple of months, I would send another letter. Then as I got even closer, like within my last year, I'd write even more frequently. And what I was doing was really planting all of these seeds, like I spoke about in the previous video, like Michael Justice spoke about in his video. You don't think about where you are today. You want to think about where you're going or what you want to become. The famous hockey player Wayne Gretzky says, "I don't skate to where the puck is. I look at where the puck is going, and then I design my moves accordingly." Well, it's the same thing that we have to do if we're a justice-impacted individual. We've got to not think and dwell upon the difficulties and challenges of our life today. Instead, we've got to think about where are we going and what can we do today to sow the seeds, to nurture the path to get there, to carve our own path. We've got to assess and judge all the time. Am I making the right decision? Well, by sending all of those letters out that I told you about, unsolicited letters, to people I didn't know and to people who didn't know me, I began building my network, my support system. All the work that I previously had done in prison made me a better candidate. And by the time I got out of prison on August the 13th, 2012, I didn't get out of my prison sentence. I just transitioned from prison to a halfway house. And because I had done all of this work, the case manager was supportive of my request to let me go out and go to work because I had jobs waiting for me. And I went to see this fella. His name is Lee. And Lee runs a pretty successful company. It's $1 billion company that he founded. And by the time I went to meet with him, we had nurtured a pretty good relationship, a good friendship through the mail. In fact, he used to come and visit me when I was in prison. And I sat across with him for the first time in this desk. And sat across his desk for the first time when I got out. And I remember looking at this place and saying, wow, I'd read about this business you built. I heard about this business you built, but it was something totally different to immerse myself in your business and to see it and say, wow, a guy I know really built this. And we laughed, and Lee had said, well, I'm really excited about you building your career and working here with me. But I told him, I said, that's not really what I want to do. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I did 26 years in prison. I want to build a career around my journey. I want to have an influence on the lives and make an impact on the lives of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of other people who go into the prison system and they're continuously beaten down and told they can never become something. And I want them to become more. And I want to do that with your support. And he said, well, I'm giving you my support. I'm giving you a job. You're going to work for me. And I said, I'd really rather not work for you. I'd rather you just support me and build this plan. And I want you to help me. And he laughed and he said, well, of course I'm going to help you. That's why I'm offering you a job for. I said, but I don't want a job. He said, well, what is it you want? I said, I want you to sell me a house. And this guy was a real estate developer among many other businesses, and he owned a lot of subdivisions and houses. And I said, I want you to sell me the house. And he kind of laughed, and he said, aren't you still in the halfway house? You just got out of jail last week. And I said, I actually got out of jail this week on Monday. It's Friday today, but I want you to sell me a house. And he laughed, and he said, well, do you have any money? And I said, I do. I have about $100,000, but I don't want to spend any of my money. And he laughed. He said, well, do you have any credit? And I said, I do. I have credit. And he said, and I pulled up my phone and they have this little thing called Credit Karma and I could show him my credit. And I said, I have a 000 credit score. And he laughed. He said, I've never seen a 000 credit score. I said, well, I went to prison in 1987. The internet didn't exist when I went to prison and I didn't exist in the system. So they apparently scored me a 000. But then I told him, Lee, yeah, I got $100,000, but I don't want to use it. I said, I'm going to need that to build my business. But I said, let's look at reality. Here's reality. You're a guy who's built a lot of businesses and you have to spend and invest a lot of money today for what you're going to grow in the years to come. And I'm going to ask you, don't look at me for who I am today. Look at me for what I am going to become. Imagine, what does it take? What kind of critical thinking skills does it take to build a savings account of more than $100,000 while you're going through prison for 25 years? I said, I will work 10 times harder than that out here. But I need to, if I'm going to want to make an impact on the world, I've got to show people in prison that it matters. And one way that I can show them that it matters is if you sell me a house. And he said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell you a house, and because I don't have to pay a commission on this house, I can't sell it to you cheap because that's going to ruin my what's called my comparative cost, my comps on the house, and it'll destroy the value of the subdivision. So I'm going to sell it to you for the same price, but since I don't have to pay a commission, I'm going to take 6% and apply that towards your purchase price. Second, he said, if you could maintain this level of energy and discipline and structure while going through 25 years in prison, I want you to teach that strategy to my team. And he had like 500 employees. So he said, go to every one of my stores, give this presentation, much like the one I'm giving here in the Preparing for Success After Prison. And he said, I'm going to pay you like $5,000 or something for every one. And that's going to go towards your down payment. And that's how I bought my first piece of real estate while I was still in a halfway house. No money down, no credit, nothing but the strength of the record that I built while I was in prison. And some people will say that's not possible. But what happens is if you invest in yourself, other people will have a vested interest in investing in you as well. Now, had I not done all of that work, that preparation in prison, I never could have persuaded somebody like that to believe in me. The guy would have looked at me like, you're a felon, you just got out of prison. Like Weldon Long said, I could sell a program to a company like Federal Express for $100,000 that will help their training team become better at sales. But I can't persuade Federal Express to hire me for $12 an hour because I've been to prison 3 times. You see, if you aspire to the best possible outcome, you could build something great. And that is what I really wrote about, is how I built success after prison. You see, that first piece of real estate turned into millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate transactions that helped me make money, that helped me grow, that helped me do what I want to do that I don't get paid for, like making a video that I'm making today. This is all work. It's all personal development. It's all what we want you to be doing. I never ask anybody to do anything that I didn't do, but I worked really hard in prison to prepare for success after prison. And I want you to prepare for success after prison. And the funny thing is I got this course, I developed this course that I distribute to people, to prison administrators all across the country. And I remember getting a video from a young man, his name was Joshua, who was in a maximum security prison in the state of Michigan. And he wrote me when he got out of prison and called me and just tried to get in touch with me many times to tell me that he'd gone through this entire program. And he told me that he wanted to do exactly what I did now that he's home from prison. But the thing is you've got to sow these seeds early. And Joshua did sow these seeds early. He told me how he had gone through school and he had stopped participating in gang activity and he had developed credentials and vocational skills. And I asked him, I said, Joshua, well, what are you doing now? Because he'd been home for like a month and a half or so. And he told me that he was working in the construction industry. And I said, well, where do you live? And he said, I live in Detroit. And I said, really? I said, is it true that you can buy houses in Detroit for like $10,000 or $15,000? And he said, yeah, that's the kind of houses that I work on. I said, well, what do you do to the house? He said, we remodel them and get them ready for habitation. And then we go on to the next one. I said, so what skill set do you have? What role do you have in building those houses? And he's told me that he can do everything. He does the painting, he does the demolition, he does the reconstruction, he does the planning of it all. And I said, well, what does it cost? How much money do you have to put in to build that house? And he said, you have to put in, about probably $25,000, and it takes a few months. And then I said, so once you've done all of that, you bought the house for say $20,000, and you put $25,000 into it, say, now you're in it for $45,000. I said, what would that house rent for if you put it on the market? And he said, it'll rent for about $800 to $900 a month. I said, well, Joshua, it sounds to me like you have all the tools you need. You could go out to investors, just like I do, and lay out a plan. Tell them you want to acquire real estate. Tell them you want to remodel the real estate. Then create a plan that says, if I succeed, I can help you get a better return on your investment than with the house than you could get if you left the money in the bank. And you can own the house. And if you want, I will manage the property for you. And so I like to teach people how to create their own income streams, their own opportunities. Now, I don't know for sure whether Joshua has gone on and executed that plan, because I know it's a lot harder than I make it sound with this video. But the purpose of this video and of this module is to persuade you to aspire to build something great. Aspire to do something that will allow you to succeed as you've defined success, not as I've defined success, and then move forward with 100% commitment, which shows you have the right attitude, and execute every single day. If you pursue this path, you too can achieve a level of success that is far higher than many people would believe is possible. Everybody who succeeds at one time or another, they are told no. They are told you can't do it. But I would argue that if you can ask the right questions, if you can introspect and say, what do I have to do? You will come up with the answers that help you develop your plan. So that's why this module follows in sequence to the earlier modules. First, define success for yourself. For me, it was to come back to society strong, with my dignity intact, opportunities to prosper, without others telling me what I couldn't do. I wanted to be able to earn a living and live productively, even though I'd been in prison for longer than a quarter century. So I had to set goals, just like you have to set goals. Smart goals. They should be specific. They should be measurable. They should be time-bound. Then you have to move forward with the right attitude. You've got to make sure that you've got 100% commitment to success. And then you have to aspire. You need that vision of what you're going to do, what you're going to become. And in the last part of this video, I want to show you some of the visions that I had about what success going to look like when I bought my first, what I would call my first super cool car after getting out of prison. And you could see it on this video.
Very excited to be with the Tesla family.
This is not about me. This is really about you. What's the best that you can become in the years and decades ahead? And then ask the question, well, if that's my aspiration, what do I have to do today to get there? So watch this little video of this cool car picking up and then be thinking about, what do you aspire to achieve when you come home? Maybe it's not material, maybe it's something else, but I would encourage you, work deliberately and go out and become the best in the world at what you say is important to you. I am Michael Sanchez with Prison Professors, and I believe in you.